What's on your mind?
Yeah. So it's interesting
Jen,
how
you want to get a little closer to the mic?
Yeah. It's funny because I have actually known about you for quite some time. And I told Patrick, shared some of your videos with him, probably a couple years ago, mostly the ones like where you'd freeze the liver and put it in the freezer. And you'd like literally take like bites of liver in the morning. So I kind of went down this, direction whenever I watched the Liver King video a couple of years ago. And I learned about Nourishing Traditions. It's a book by Sally Fallon, which is where I learned about Weston Price. So all the information that you shared about him, I'm very familiar with it. But so it's really interesting, this whole, cycle or journey of learning how to eat healthy. And so I guess one of my questions would be about the water in our house. Yeah. So do you have a water filter? Should we have a water filter on our home? Like, for our entire water system, because you mentioned about the fluoride in the water, that's something that we can't.
You're talking shower, everything.
Yes, I'm talking about everything.
I think if someone can afford it, you should have a whole house water filter, because it's just more than the fluoride. It's the chlorine and the chlorine derivatives. I think over 90% of the tap water in the United States has at least one carcinogen in it. You can look at, I believe it's Environmental Working Group has tap water resources, and you can pick your city and you can see where it is. So you can look up the water and the municipal water in Los Angeles or the municipal water in Austin, Texas. And there are usually 20 to 30 contaminants in there. And when you are showering, it's often hot water. Your pores are open and you can absorb that. So is this the first thing to worry about? No, we kind of went through a hierarchy of things to do for your health. But if you're interested and people have the resources, a whole house filter is a great idea, because I don't want to be swimming. Like, look, I was in New York a little while ago, and you look at the water on New York and nobody's going to go swimming in that water because it's polluted. Well, what are you showering in, right? And you're showering in pesticides, you're showering in chlorine derivatives, you're showering in pharmaceutical drugs, because those end up in the water supply. I mean, look at your municipal water on Environmental Working Group, and you'll be astounded at what's actually in that. And even if you're not drinking it, showering in it is an exposure. So I think a whole house filter is a very good investment.
Yeah, I've seen some, and they're very pricey.
I don't think you need something crazy pricey, but I think it's a good investment. I mean, yeah.
What else, babe?
Okay, good. So there's a lot of talk about the red meats and lots of, meats in your diet. But what about fish and seafood? Are you one that eats those type of foods?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of red meat. I think that 200 to 300 years ago, fish was great. And today it's a little more polluted than other foods. And so I don't eat a lot of fish. If you're eating fish instead of junk food, you're doing great. But people need to know that, number one, Atlantic salmon is entirely farm raised. There's no such thing as wild Atlantic salmon. Farmed fish in general has higher levels of all sorts of problems: PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyl compounds, PFAs, forever chemicals in farmed fish. So you do not want to eat farmed fish, which includes every single Atlantic salmon ever. Even if you're eating wild fish, the levels of heavy metals are pretty high, whether it's arsenic, mercury, cadmium, lead, etc. Fish in general has higher levels of microplastics and higher levels of forever chemicals. So it's just, fish is a tough thing for me. Bottom feeders or shellfish have higher levels of certain heavy metals. So even like scallops or shrimp. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to kill you, but I always get a little worried when people are pescatarian. If they make the majority of their protein intake centered around fish, I just urge them to get tested for heavy metals and understand their exposure there. So I don't think a pescatarian diet is a great idea for humans. The whole idea of a pescatarian diet usually comes from people fearing red meat. And I think red meat has been incorrectly vilified. I've talked about that a bunch. I'm a huge apologist for red meat. I think it's an incredibly healthy food for humans. So I don't think you can never eat fish. I just think that you need to be aware of what's in it. And certainly some of the high heavy metal fish like swordfish or mahi or shark, the bigger fish, very, very high levels of heavy metals. And there are recorded, documented cases of people getting, it's called Hatterism, in reference to the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland. So Hatterism is a
tendency to be negative.
That's haterism. We need one more T. That's haterism. Wow. Look up Hatterism. Hatterism is mercury toxicity. So apparently the hat makers used to get Hatterism from mercury exposure. And Hatterism is just the historical reference to mercury toxicity. And that's been documented from people eating too much fish and sushi. You can actually get Hatterism.
Wow.
So yeah, it's not something to take lightly. There are a lot of famous people, Tony Robbins, other folks who have actually gotten pretty significant mercury and other heavy metal toxicity from eating a lot of fish.
Wow.
So yeah, these are real cases of this happening. Yeah.
Yeah, this is. It was common among hatters in 18th and 20th century to use mercury to
Stiffen the felt.
stiffen felt, symptoms, tremors, irritability, slurred speech, depression, shyness, low self-confidence, apathy, personality changes, memory loss, and headaches. Wow.
This is the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland.
Wow.
That's his character.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, not
Well-
haterism, Hatterism. So I think fish is, again, it's a single ingredient food. Don't fear it, but I wouldn't make it the majority of your protein intake.
Paul, this has been great. Babe, thank you for that.
Thank you so
Gang,
much. Great to meet you.
Yeah.
We're going to put these things below. Rob, put the links below to
You
this
like those?
one. I like this one.
It's so good.
So I don't know which ones. I've eaten this thing throughout the entire podcast. It's awesome. And I'm going to try your the protein one you're
powder.
talking about.
I brought you some creatine also. You don't take creatine.
At all.
You need to be taking
Tell me
this.
why.
So creatine is the
I've taken creatine before, but that was 25 years ago.
But creatine is the easiest hack for people. So you should be taking creatine also. Women, kids can take creatine. It's a super safe supplement. So creatine is a phosphate donor. It's basically an energy intermediate in the human body. And it's basically pennies a day for one of the single most studied and safe substances on the planet. It's made by the human body, but when we get enough, everything works better. So creatine, it's almost a neurotropic. You know, it's a nootropic. Like if you're sleep deprived, there's evidence creatine is beneficial. Muscle recovery, explosiveness. Like creatine is very easy to take for humans and valuable. And I figured you might not be taking it, so take 5 grams of creatine a day. It's incredible. A lot of people I know have stopped drinking coffee because they take creatine.
Really?
Yeah, because it's a nootropic.
And is it, back in the day, they used to say, drink your creatine with grape juice, any of that stuff. Is that still the case? Or
No, you don't
just
have
water?
To. No, just water is
Okay,
fine.
got
I
it.
mean, you might have to get a little bit more fluid during the day, but it's super safe.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Hey guys, I am Paul Saladino. You can find me on Manect if you have any questions about diet, health, recovering from chronic illness or autoimmune disease. I'm excited to connect with you guys all there, and I'll see you in there.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.